Here in episode 766, discover how grief intersects with entrepreneurship and how leaders can continue to build meaningful lives and businesses even after profound personal tragedy. We are excited to have Lynn Lewis back in the virtual studio with us here on the Sharvette Mitchell Radio Show. And Lynn, her message is, I choose to live in the aftermath. And it's certainly a message that is a beacon of hope for anyone that's navigating loss while still serving, still leading, and still wanting to thrive. You're in the right place today on the Sharvette Mitchell Radio Show. We're going to get started right after this quick intro. Don't you move. We'll be right back.
Whoa. Why y'all so happy?
You don't know? Sharvette Mitchell is on the radio.
It's time to get motivated, excited, and influenced. Why? It's the Sharvette Mitchell Radio Show, live from Richmond, Virginia. And now, here to motivate, excite, and influence you, Sharvette Mitchell.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the Sharvette Mitchell Radio Show, broadcasting live from the capital city of Richmond, Virginia, but heard and seen all across the World Wide Web. Shout out to those that are live with us in a couple different places on Facebook. We see you. Certainly those that check us out on LinkedIn. Hello to Instagram. We're glad to have you in on the conversation. We cannot leave out YouTube. Welcome to those that are checking us out live or later on YouTube. Listen, go ahead and hit subscribe. I know you love the content that you see on our channel. So go ahead and hit subscribe so we can let you know when we have other amazing sessions and segments that are always coming up. Certainly, thank you to those that listen to us in our podcast versions, Apple Podcasts and iHeartRadio and Spotify. And you might even be listening to us from Amazon Music. And you know what, y'all? The other day I recognized Audible. So if you like to listen to books, audio books, the Sharvette Mitchell Radio Show is listed in Audible. I think, did I know that? I might have known that. I don't remember, but I saw my own show in Audible. So if you are one of those that likes to listen to audiobooks and you already have that app over there, go ahead and just find the Sharvette Mitchell Radio Show and just click so it'll pop up in your feed. So welcome. Hey there to all those that are coming on in. And so today's segment, we are always looking for and thinking about topics that do a couple things, because the goal of the show is to motivate, excite, and influence. And we know that bringing various topics to you will do just that. And we have a lot of small business owners and entrepreneurs that check out the show. And so here in episode 766, today's topic is loss, grief, and entrepreneurship. Yeah, when life happens, right, the business keeps going. Things keep going. Everything keeps moving. And so we're going to have a really heartfelt, insightful conversation today. Lynn Lewis is hanging out in the virtual green room. Listen, she's ready to come up to the mic. So let me tell you a little bit about Lynn, and we're going to go ahead and get started. And I would have you and request that you tag maybe someone you feel like, oh, you should really check this out and listen to this. I think you should tag them or send them a private inbox and say, check out this episode. So Lynn Lewis here with us. She is a certified grief educator, speaker, and author. She's also the visionary and the chief empathy officer of Destined to Thrive Grief Coaching. She's certainly a respected leader in grief education and coaching. And Lynn really empowers individuals to navigate life after profound loss with purpose and resilience. She specializes in supporting adults who are ready to reclaim the meaning and the impact in their lives despite a loss. And her compassionate approach reassures clients that while grief never disappears, it's not going to be erased, they are not alone and they can still live fulfilling, meaningful, and purposeful lives. Again, you're here on episode 766 of the Sharvette Mitchell Radio Show. Our topic is loss, grief, and entrepreneurship. Put your hands together. Put your hands together as we welcome Lynn Lewis to the stage. Hello, Lynn. How are you?
Hello, Sharvette. I am well, thank you. How are you?
I am doing well. We are excited to have you here. Shout out to a few people over on YouTube. Hello, Roberto. Hello, Marilyn. Checking on in from New York. Listen, Betty Jean Stanley Mitchell is in the house. So hello, hello, hello. Hey there, Dana. Hair Cares Inc. is in the house. And so let's go ahead and jump right on in, Lynn. And so I'd love for you to kind of start us off by sharing your journey and really the catalyst for the current work that you're doing.
Okay, good. Thanks for that. Thanks for this opportunity. My journey, this grief journey, I call it, began in August of 2019 when my favorite man-child, my one and only son, one and only child actually passed away. And shortly after his death, I decided that I still wanted to live. I still wanted to have my life. I couldn't change what happened, and I knew it would be with me for the rest of my life. But I decided I still wanted to live, to make an impact in this world. And as I figured out how that would look and what I would do, I found grief coaching, and really that's what catapulted me to becoming a grief coach and educator.
Wow, such impactful work, certainly. And, what does it mean to live in the aftermath? And, how has that message for you really evolved?
Living in the aftermath, it started out as a personal declaration. It was just 7 months after his death when I decided I'm not going to die with my child. I can't change what happened, but I can decide how I am going to navigate this journey. At the time that I made the declaration, I really had no idea what that would look like. I was probably still somewhat in my shock space and fantasy space, but I did make that declaration, and it was personal, that I was just going to figure out how to continue to live out my life with this awesome and awful burden that had been dealt to me. And Sharvette, as time has gone on, it's almost 6 years now, it has evolved to not only my personal declaration, but I include it in my talks, I include it in my coaching, my speaking, because I want other people to know that they too can live and they can thrive in the aftermath of a loss. Mine happened to been, the tragic death of my son, but whatever the loss is. And so that's how it's kind of evolved over these years, that it's just, you can do it, but it's a choice. You got to make a choice.
It's a choice. It's a choice. And shout out to Dr. Nina Copeland. She is hanging out with us over on Instagram. And so I think I'm glad that you mentioned your loss happened to be, the loss of your son. And I know that you talk a lot about various types of losses. And in this time space that we're in, I'm seeing, up and down my timeline for business owners who, some of them are having to make the decision of like shutting down a brick and mortar, or scaling back on their business, or going out of business. And that is a loss there in and of itself. So I just I'm glad that you brought that point up. And those that are listening also can, identify that there are various types of losses. And so how does loss and grief, we're jumping right in, right? How does loss and grief impact entrepreneurs differently?
So, and I'm glad you kind of did the segue for me into, I was going to mention loss and grief, just to define it a little bit. So that people are aware when I talk about loss and grief that, what I'm talking about. And so loss is really anything that you are no longer have a privy to, or you no longer have access to, you're deprived of. And it can be a person, of course, by death. But it's also anything that you no longer have. But you cared about it, you loved it, or you cared deeply for it. it can be other types of relationships. It can be divorce, children moving away. Lots of parents go through a hard time when their children move away, whether for marriage or jobs. It can be, like I said, anything that you have that you no longer have and you're separated from. And then grief is the emotions that the emotional reaction to whatever the loss was. And then grieving is that process of going through all of those emotions. And so, of course, for entrepreneurs, aside from death, it seems simple, but for us as entrepreneurs, a bad review. I mean, that can mess up a business.
Yeah.
And, contracts. So if your business has had particular contracts, big contracts, they've been like, your go-tos, and then for whatever reason, you lose that contract, that business may go out of business. That can cause grief for an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And misunderstandings between clients and business owners. And then, of course, anybody that's over 3 years old, remember what happened in 2020. Economic, it shut the world down, basically. And so all of those types of things can adversely affect a business. And as we know, entrepreneurship has its own, things itself. Especially smaller businesses don't have the large HR departments and things like that. So when grief, when loss happens, it can really, really burden an entrepreneur.
Oh, wow. Thank you for enlightening the audience and expanding our view and vision and breaking down those examples. If you're just showing up and just getting logged in, welcome to the Sharvette Mitchell Radio Show. We are here with Lynn Lewis, a certified grief educator, speaker, and author, with our segment here about loss, grief, and entrepreneurship. So welcome to all those that are coming on in. And so, Lynn, how can entrepreneurs really honor their grief while still having to show up, for the business, having to show up for clients, maybe even still, doing content or managing what to do with that? Any thoughts around that?
Yes. Communicate. Yeah. As my colleague, Tara Carlton says, you don't have to tell your business to tell your story. So communicate with your team, communicate with your clients, communicate with yourself, be open and upfront and honest with yourself. You don't have to tell the client or even your team all of the details of what surrounds the loss, but let them know, I need to step back, or I may be missing, or I need to switch some meetings around, but just communicate. And I think that's the best, the top of the agenda thing to do when a loss comes up. And, I'm not trying to be the grim reaper, but loss happens. I mean, it's part of life. And so, and the other thing I like to say is, regardless of what the loss is, all losses and grief are valid. Just because you can handle something well and the next person can't, but if it causes them some grief, that's valid. That's valid. Yeah.
Wow. Because sometimes people may want to put weights on, you had a bad breakup, and that's not, you can't compare, or don't compare like a bad breakup to maybe a loss of life, or don't compare a bad breakup to even a divorce. However, it can, somebody that was with somebody for however long, still lost and still some grief in there.
Exactly. Exactly.
Destined to Thrive Grief Coaching. You are at the helm of that. And if people want to reach you and contact you, what's the best way to see about your services?
Well, certainly the website at Destined to Thrive griefcoaching.com. There is email at destinedtothrive@outlook.com. I'm on Instagram as Grief Coach Lynn, and I am also on LinkedIn as Lynn Lewis. And what else? Facebook, Destined to Thrive, and my name. And I feel free to look to reach out, and I do offer complimentary chats. I call them complimentary chats.
Yes. And if you are listening, checking us out on Sharvette.com, our main website, we have Lynn's full bio. We have all the links to connect with her. So that's a great place to go. Also, if you're over on YouTube, look down in the show notes. If you're listening to the podcast version, look down in the show notes. We have all the links there for you. Again, welcome and thank you to those that are hanging out with us on Instagram. We appreciate you. We appreciate you always. And so there are certainly some common, misconceptions about grief that you work to really dispel through your coaching. Would you like to reference, and you already kind of tapped into some of it, but any other myths around grief?
Yes, there are many, but just a couple of the ones that I hear often. People think that grief has a beginning and an end, like a timeline.
Yeah.
And but I like to remind people that grief doesn't have an expiration date. It just lasts as long as it lasts. And it depends on what the loss is, the relationship with even if it's an entrepreneur, the relationship with how they felt about their business or not. It doesn't have an expiration date. It changes, but it doesn't have an expiration date per se. Another is, and we mentioned that earlier, is that all grief is valid, regardless of what the loss is. All grief is valid. And those are some of the big ones. And if there's a death involved, whether it's personal, and tonight we're really talking to entrepreneurs, but you should be over that by now. You need to move on. No, you think about a business partner, you've been with them, co-worker, you've sat beside them, you've been on teams with them, and then they're gone. No, we spend more time with our coworkers, our business partners, than we do really with anybody else. And but the getting over part, don't concern yourself with that.
Dispelling the myths here. And so I also want to mention, certainly if someone is a entrepreneur that is also a veteran, if you're in the state of Virginia and you're a veteran and there's some type of loss or grief you've experienced, Lynn, you are doing some amazing work in collaboration with Forever Healed, who is the main kind of name and link you all probably see, in conjunction with Mitchell Productions. You're doing some great work to gives really grief coaching, group coaching to veterans. And so I think this actually would be a good time to just show a quick commercial with that, because your work is really impactful in that area. So I'm going to let you relax back in the virtual green room.
Okay.
And again, Lynn Lewis is certainly doing a lot of amazing work. If you are a veteran in the state of Virginia, listen up.
Are you a veteran, service member, or family member struggling with loss? Forever Healed offers a free grief and wellness program just for you. Every Thursday, join a supportive community where trained grief specialists guide you through managing loss, from injuries and career changes to personal struggles. These sessions provide a safe space, tools for healing, and the chance to move beyond pain to find renewed purpose. Register today and take that first step towards healing. Learn more at foreverhealed.com.
All right. I wanted to make sure that we let you know about that. Let me bring Lynn back up to the stage. Again, if you are in the state of Virginia, listening in the state of Virginia, you are a veteran, military, have served in the military, are a family member of someone who has or is serving, you are able actually, by way of a generous grant, to receive grief coaching, and Lynn Lewis is one of the grief specialists for that. What has that work kind of done for you? I know I kind of throwing this in, but it just came to
No.
mind.
It's okay. It's okay.
Okay.
That particular work, working with Forever Healed, and then working with the veterans and their family members, it has really been eye-opening for me, because as I've mentioned in some of our sessions, I have military personnel in my life. My cousins, some of them were in Vietnam, and I saw, I didn't know at the time, but just what came back with them, the PTSD and the drinking, and then my brothers, both of my brothers were military. Of course, they were in during the time that it wasn't active war, but nevertheless, they were there. And so I have a new appreciation, just learning, and I'm a lifelong learner. So just learning, and this generous grant that we have to be able to do that work, it is just phenomenal. And then when we get the feedback from the people that we are serving, it's all worth it to get up early or stay up late to, whatever we need to do to get these sessions done. But just, they're so appreciative. And so that has just been heartwarming.
Wonderful. Again, you can jump over to foreverhealed.com if you are in Virginia and want to check up on that, which is a great segue, as you mentioned just now, like what came back, for the veterans, like they left one way and came back another way. And so how can business leaders, business owners even recognize grief in themselves, or even team members and contractors? Because sometimes people don't know that what it is grief. Shout out to Dr. Tamara Diaz saying, making an impact. Thank you. Thank you, Wanda, for saying thank you, Lynn.
So one of the ways, and there's several that I think are important, but certainly when you notice a difference in patterns and habits, and really that would go back to what we mentioned earlier with communication. That's why one of the reasons it's so important to communicate with your people, whether it's your clients or your members or yourself. But to if you notice changes, that person that was always there before time, that person that was always dressed impeccably, that person that was always, the always person. And now you notice the tardiness, the dress, not so much, the withdrawing, the isolation, and even check that for yourself as well. It's the time for you to check in with yourself, like what's going on. And the thing about it, Sharvette, is sometimes we don't recognize grief as grief if it hasn't been a big thing, if it hasn't been a death, if it hasn't been a business closing, if it hasn't been, it could be a medical thing, it could be a pet loss, so if you see changes in patterns or changes in habits, then, maybe time to maybe have a conversation, or, just pay attention at least to see if it keeps going.
Yeah. There was a meme that I grabbed from someone and put it on my Instagram, on my LinkedIn account, that said organizations should pay attention when their most productive and outgoing employees become quiet. There's
Right.
definitely something. So I want to capture over on Instagram. Thank you, Larissa. She said this topic is so needed. Absolutely. We totally agree. And Roberto from New York says communication is key. Listen, Betty Jean said, I like you can tell your story without telling your business. Absolutely. This is good. You all go ahead and throw some likes. Give us hearts wherever you're watching. Look, if you're on the podcast, give us a good rating. If you're over on YouTube, comment, like, subscribe. Because this is really great information. And so, Lynn, can we talk about the importance of like reclaiming purpose? We're kind of coming into like the last 5 minutes of the segment here, but
wow.
yeah, it flew by, right? How can or the importance really of reclaiming purpose and meaning after loss? That's probably the bigger thing that people are struggling with.
Very, very, very important. And that is a great time for you to reflect, think about what was happening before. So take time to reflect and adjust accordingly, because after a loss, regardless of what the loss may be, you may have to change some plans. You may have to change the way you did things. But thinking back again, 5 years ago when COVID-19 showed up, we were scrambling to figure out how to school our children, how to run our businesses. So when you are reclaiming your purpose and meaning, take a time out and reflect and make the necessary adjustments. And don't be afraid to do that, because it's different. Life is different. If you remember, we used during COVID, it was a lot of your new normal. I got so tired of hearing new normal. But the more I got into the grief work, and I said, you know what? There's a line drawn in the sand before the loss and after. And after the loss, it is a new normal. So with your business, take time to reflect and adjust, because now there's a new normal. You may have to do business a little bit differently.
Yeah, so good, so good. Thank you, Deborah Hanson over on Instagram. She said, "Thanks, Sharvette and Lynn, for this enlightening conversation." Dr. Wilkins, Dr. Travis, I believe that is over on Instagram. He said, "That's so true. New norms can sometimes be traumatizing and draining." Wow, this is a big conversation here. Rita, we shout out Rita Stewart, said, "A cause of grief can definitely be quiet, under the surface." And then Diane Jones is, let me pop this up here. So thank you, Rita, for that comment. Diane Jones says, "Some suffer in silence." Absolutely. And then Betty Jean said, "Reflect and readjust there." What are final words you would have for listeners and viewers? And actually, before we get to that, how can people work with you? How can they work with you, purchase what you have, all that good stuff?
Work with me, purchase what I have, which I have 2 books right now. And you can find all of that on the website, Destined to Thrive at Destined to Thrive griefcoaching.com. You can find the books, the how to work with me. And you can always direct message me on Instagram at Grief Coach Lynn and Facebook at Lynn Lewis.
All right. Thank you. And Dr. Travis over on Instagram said, "I remember when my mother passed, after I was like, who was I going to be a caregiver for?" After I was like, okay, so he was a caregiver. And so then it's like your identity, there's an identity change for those that have been like caregivers, and now that new norm. Yeah.
That's big for a lot of people who have been caregivers. And then 2 things usually happen. They try to figure out what's my identity now that I'm not a caregiver anymore. The other is a sense of relief. And with that comes guilt. I shouldn't be feeling relief because my XYZ passed away. But now they can get back to doing some things they used to do or wanted to do. And so, yeah, that is definitely another form of grief, or those emotions.
Wow. I mean, we could literally keep going. But the goal of the show is to motivate, excite, and influence. And we want to know what continues to motivate Lynn Lewis.
What continues to motivate me is that the work that I am doing, I just believe, I know, until somebody convinces me otherwise, I know that what I am doing, telling my story, coming alongside others with similar stories, and helping them to move forward at their own pace, by their choice, that motivates me. When I see someone say, oh, I can live afterward, or I didn't think I would be able to do this, and they are doing it. And so that motivates me. What I share is somebody's painkiller. It's somebody's reason that they can get up and go another day. Somebody's life jacket that they can stay afloat, that they can keep their business afloat, when they thought there was no way. So that's what motivates me. And then it helps. It's helping me. It's a part of my own healing process, and a way to keep my child's memory alive, So that's what motivates me.
And I'm sure he is proud. I am sure he is proud. All right, Lynn, thank you so much for being here, and an amazing guest. And I know you got some things probably coming up. Do you have any events or anything coming up that people can participate in?
Let's see. Most of what I have coming up right now are a couple of speaking engagements, but save the date. Yeah. Saturday, August 30th. I am hosting Grief Awareness Day RVA. Grief Awareness Day RVA will be August 30th. That's a Saturday. And it's going to be here in the Richmond, Virginia area. So I will have info up on social media very, very soon for that. But it'll be only a couple of hours, 3 hours max, from 11 to 2. So,
wow. Listen, we are trying to go. Dr. Travis said, I know y'all trying to go. He said, I just talked about this last night. Thank you, Instagram. Y'all have been active, real active today. Thank you so much. All right. I'm going to honor your time and release you. But listen, this just means we just need to have you back, on some kind of regularly scheduled basis. But we are excited to continue working with you, and all the amazing things that you're doing with your lived experience and lives that you're changing. So thank you so much, Lynn.
Thank you, Sharvette.
All right, awesome. All right, well, it is a wrap for today on the Sharvette Mitchell Radio Show. Again, if you came in and you're like, oh, I missed some of it, no problem. Sharvette.com is the best place to go. Sharvette.com is where you can see a blog post for every single one of our guests. It has their full bio. It has their links. It has a place for you to watch the YouTube video. It has a place for you to listen to the podcast. So Sharvette.com, wherever you are, if there is a subscription option, go ahead and click subscribe to the podcast. Leave us a good rating. Leave us a good note there. And actually, you can even send a text message if you're listening to the podcast. There's a click to text, so you can actually send us a text if you have a comment or something that you want to get to our guest. We would be happy to do that. Thank you so much, Diane, for being here. It's a wrap. I'm going to see you all later on the web. Bye.
Live from Richmond, Virginia, you've been listening to the Sharvette Mitchell Radio Show. Catch Sharvette Mitchell every Tuesday at 6 p.m., interviewing all the stars you want to hear from. So until next week, stay motivated, excited, and influenced. This is the Sharvette Mitchell Radio Show.